Some of the testimonies that we heard and some of these courageous journalists who were ready to share these stories with public, some of them, they just went underground, they stopped writing because it was affecting them so much that they could not engage with journalism any longer, not to mention the effect this kind of harassment had on their families. And then on the other side, the problem, media houses not doing enough in order to protect them, in order to offer also psychological assistance, which is also part of the problem and part of the recommendations that we are trying to introduce, because psychological trauma is tremendous. And it is something that I was not aware of. The OSCE representative on freedom of the media, I thought, this is a problem, but it's not such a huge problem. After I heard testimonies, after I heard stories that are also shared in our publication, is something that actually proved to me that we need to continue working on it. My response to the group saying that they are performing their freedom of expression while attacking journalists, it's very simple. That's a very cheap excuse. You do not threat somebody with rape and say that is your freedom of expression. It's a criminal act, and that's very clear to me. It creates censorship, definitely, and that's based on the facts, based on particular cases that we had to deal with. But also the effect on other journalists in media houses, but also freelancer trying to look at the stories that are based on investigative journalism, courageous journalism revealing corruption, crime, wrongdoings of the powerful in their societies. And the chilling effect is broad. It's affecting journalism in general. The group that is extremely important in this whole story is the role of intermediaries and search engines in general, big companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, because most of the time if journalists and bloggers are attacked, they're attacked via Facebook, Twitter. It's mainly happening on social media. And not really, email correspondence or something like that, even though there are cases of that kind as well. The first thing we said, this is something that needs to be recognized. And what I also think it's important that other international organizations, here I'm thinking about the UN, Council of Europe, European Commission, should be more engaged and, putting more funds in order to tackle this phenomena. What the states should also be doing is engaging law enforcement agencies, training law enforcement agencies. In many states we managed to see that law enforcement, judiciary, they are not trained in a way that they could address these issues. And the only thing states are doing, which is wrong, and that is one of the recommendations, do not introduce new laws in order to tackle it. And they are introducing new laws thinking, okay, now we fix it. On the contrary, of course it's not. It's probably in a long term affecting or limiting free speech. What is always missing when it comes to any kind of recommendations, including this one, is a political will. Political will first to recognize that there is a problem that needs to be tackled, and the introduction of the new laws or new resolutions is not going to solve it. We need action. Apart from the words, we need deeds. There is a need for the engagement with the civil society, with the journalists, with the associations dealing with this. But we also have to be very realistic. Some states find this quite handy, this kind of harassment, and they do nothing because this is just continuing restriction of free speech and silencing any critical voices in their society. So it's a very complex problem. That is why I think it's extremely important that international organizations, intergovernmental, like this one, with the direct access to the states, also to criticize them, is loud and reminding them of the responsibilities. Otherwise, it will go undercover. Otherwise, it will be, something that many wish for, and that is unfortunately the reality of the 21st century. You think that the internet and all the benefits would bring the best of us and expose it. It actually creating a situation where the worst and the evil is there, and people are even more courageous in expressing the most extreme views affecting individuals, but also the society. And that is why we need to have a joint voice. We need to be very clear in addressing these issues, and we need to support journalists that are experiencing this and to work with them by raising this constantly.